order, going into budget session. I think Ms. Heidi York has the floor.
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners. Welcome to your first budget work session. I have talked with each of you in terms of what additional information you would like to discuss today, and I do have just 3 very simple slides to help facilitate our discussion. The only items that we have on the agenda for this morning, as of this moment, is an update from Laura in Finance with just some small adjustments that we always bring up to date to you. I do have at your seats 2 additional requests that came after the budget had been proposed, so if you'd like to talk about those, we can dedicate some time to that. And then a couple of you had wanted to talk a little bit further about the volunteer fire department funding, and so we are prepared to talk with you about those policy decisions and what's currently proposed with that. If there's any other items that you'd like to add, you certainly are welcome to. If not, I'll ask Laura to just give you a couple of adjustments since the budget has been recommended to now, some small tweaks that we have to make. And then as you make changes, we'll have a calculator tool to keep up with the adjustments that you would like to make. Anything before we jump in? Okay, Laura, if you don't mind.
Just a couple of small adjustments that don't impact the overall dollar amount in the budget, but we need to let you know about. The first is for the 911 telephone system fund. The 911 board, telephone board, requested that the county use $68,143 in available 911 telephone system fund balance, which would reduce the state allocation by an equivalent amount, $68,143. So there is no change to the overall budget except that we would be using more of our existing fund balance rather than receiving those from the state next year. The second adjustment is in Fund 250, which will be defund VFDs, receiving that grant into the general fund, but then increasing our appropriation to the VFDs by an equivalent $100,000. So they would still be kept at the $1 million appropriation, which would be a combination of fire tax district revenues as well as county funds, except that we would be receiving the grant in the general fund and increasing the transfer over to their fund. There's no new money there. The allocation is still the same, $1 million, but we needed to let you know that there would be some slight shifting in where that grant was received and how it got to the VFDs. Are there any questions about that?
That way they don't have to submit requests, get approved for certain equipment. It saves a lot of administrative steps for the VFDs.
But their total is still $1 million?
Yes,
still
sir.
$1 million.
So basically, we use it against to find what we were looking for, the 300-some thousand we were finding?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it required a general fund appropriation of $330,000 to get to that $1 million. That $100,000 is made the general fund appropriation $230 when we first talked about it. So now that we're bringing it into the general fund, it'll just look like $330,000 from the general fund going into the fire tax.
Otherwise, the burden on the VFDs was going to be pretty significant. They would be providing us a lot of
I think their concern
documentation.
was that Representative Yarborough stood there and said it was for one thing and we're using it for another.
Well, it'd still be for volunteer fire department infrastructure. It helped to have one kind of big invoice to submit to the state. Otherwise, the documentation was going to be pretty significant. So we've got the Viper radios, which is about $100,000. We can submit that invoice to the state, receive the $100,000 into the general fund, but then at the same time increase the transfer.
I understand the
yeah.
logistics. I'm just saying what they understood when Representative Yarborough said he had $100,000 for turnout gear.
Yeah.
They weren't expecting that to be
Right.
leveraged against their $1 million.
I think he was just using sort of a scenario language. I don't think he meant that specifically.
That's the way he,
Language of
that's,
the contract.
That's not the other grant's written,
Right.
I understand,
unfortunately.
but that's how he presented it.
Yeah.
Right, it is.
It's unfortunate there was a miscommunication there.
How does that impact that $100,000 next year?
Yeah, that's a one-time grant from the state, so you would be looking, you know,
Have to find
for an
that again.
additional
Right.
100,000 to keep them at the 1 million.
Any other questions for Laura?
All right, would you
Hearing
like
none.
to talk about the VFD funding, or not ready to jump into that?
Yeah, what was the, what was the rate that we have in the budget now?
Let me
0.1.
just get to this one slide right quick, because I think it's helpful to make sure that we're all looking at the same numbers. So I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible, but I have to tell you that the calculation is complicated in terms of how we get to this. Your question, Commissioner Jeffers, is what is the rate for the fire tax? And right now it's at 0.0182. You can see the second set of bullets there under proposed budget has a fire tax proposed at 0.0182, which generates $669,000.
And then 0.027 funds it fully, makes it cleaner.
Yeah, so the alternative is the fire tax at 0.0272, which would generate $1 million.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know.
Okay, so let me back up real quick to this other slide. We were really wanting to kind of focus on the policy decision of the board that you all continue to struggle with on this. So if I could frame it this way and try to keep us making more of a larger policy decision and less of a down and dirty numbers decision, I think this might help clarify. So the choice that you have in the first box is to have a separate funding source, i.e. a fire tax, to fund the volunteer fire departments. Or you have a choice of doing sort of the mixed revenues. And I've underlined mixed revenues because that's what's currently proposed. You have a hybrid of a fire tax that is only going to provide $669,000. You have a general fund appropriation of $330,000, and that gives you your $1 million. So there's a choice there, depending on, you know, what your preference is, having a one dedicated steady stream or having mixed revenues. And then the second box is, you know, another discussion versus the philosophy of what you want to do with your property tax rate. So what is proposed in the budget and underlined here is a tax rate that becomes taxpayer neutral when you add the fire tax at 0.0182. So the tax rate drops to 0.6818. That means your taxpayer will not see a difference unless they live in the city of Roxborough, in which case they would have a decrease to their property tax rate because they'd no longer be paying 70 cents. They would be paying 0.6818, and they would not have a fire tax on there.
We lose $812,000.
You are at a loss of $812,000 next year when you go with the two underlined options. So the taxpayer neutral is, you know, offset with a different choice of using, you know, the revenues. Your most efficient use of revenues, of course, is to keep your tax rate flat, provides consistency. At this point, because I have proposed it with a tax decrease to the tax rate, if you were to make an adjustment back to 70, you would have a surplus in your budget. And so those are really the policy decisions that you need to decide. The first
So-
box is on the fire tax, and the second is on your property tax.
So without going back to Sybil's chart, if we just, if we were to set the fire tax rate at the 0.272, we pulled the whole 1 million from the fire tax, leave the tax rate at 70 cents, that gives us 812,000, then we can just
It
put
would
in.
give, actually, that would give you more than 812, because you're doing two things there. You're increasing your fire tax, and you're increasing your property tax. So you'd be at $1.2 million. $1 million. Because remember that 330,000
Right, we're
general
fine.
fund
That makes sense,
also
yeah.
goes back into that.
But we can just put that in fund balance.
You could.
Pay for fireworks.
Get us some nice fireworks.
So how do you do that when you're looking back at the previous numbers, that .6818? And then you add in a .0182. That brings us to how much money you've got a reduction, then you've got an add-on. So
Right, we think it's about $1,040,000.
when you do that, you do the
Yes.
reduction and do the increase.
You're saying set the fire tax at the 2.72 amount? Or am I misunderstanding that?
You have the two offsetting each other. I mean, the reduction and then the increase. Because you're talking about reducing the 70 cent to.
Right. Which is what is currently proposed.
Right.
So that
Which
next.
would give us how much money there?
That's what you currently have in your budget, so
That
there's no.
gives you
if
no
keep it
change.
the same, then you have no additional revenue. If you did the 6818, there's no change in revenue. 'Cause that's what's currently proposed.
That's what I have proposed. I have a fire tax at 0182. I have a property tax at 6818. And I have a general fund appropriation of 330. So that's the slide in the middle there. And that was the direction from the board, since the board retreat. We've just done.
Let me ask this question. So, Kyle doesn't have all his tabs on this page this time like he normally does. So are we looking at adding anything into the budget? Are
Well,
we
that's
looking
kind
at
of what today
increasing? Well, I
is
know,
for.
this is more to the board. Are we looking to increase any of these proposed budgets from the manager?
I didn't have any.
Because if not, I'll make the motion to set the tax rate, leave it alone at 70, set the fire tax at 0.272, and put that 1.2 million in fund balance. But if we're gonna go through and people got stuff they wanna add back, then I'll pull out my DSS list and these other departments is called, and we'll, but.
I don't know, this is hard.
Yes. We agree.
I was thinking about this the other day. Not just the other day. I spent many long sessions in my mind, along with prayer for direction. And just a thought keeps coming back to my mind. I think we're at the crossroads of reality and common sense. And I think it's important that we number one, do the right thing. The reality is that our volunteer fire departments aren't funded sufficiently. I've done a lot of in-depth research on this in the past year. You guys already know all this stuff, so I had to play catch up. And I totally understand. I totally believe they're unfunded. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. And it is a tough decision. So to me, in a sense, it's common sense, and we got to do the right thing. Our citizens not only want, but they deserve the best protection and safety they can get. And I think overall this board has demonstrated that in the finances and support when there's an emergency, and with the volunteer fire departments and their response. Every man, woman, and child in the county at any given time could need their assistance. And not just a burning building, but for other issues as well. That's where your first responders come in, and I see and I get and I understand all that. If you live in the city and you turn on your faucet, you expect to get good quality, clean, drinking, usable water. That's what you pay for. And the same thing goes with volunteer fire departments. That's what our citizens are expecting when they dial 911 and you get a response from the 911 people in that particular area. That's what they want. That's what they expect. That's what they deserve. These things don't come cheap. Inflation alone in the last 10 to 12 years has been in the 20% category. They suffer from inflation there just like we do in our home budgets or schools or any other department. So it's on a gradual upturn. But again, their services are needed. We need those people, and they're dedicated, they're loyal. So again, I've thought this over a lot, in a long time, given a lot to it. Talked to people in the county, talked with you guys, the manager. I've talked to people at the fire marshal's office in Raleigh to see and get their opinion on where we stand in the county, what the needs are, the direction we're going, some things we need to do. So I've reached out in a lot of different ways to sort of try to get myself informed on where we stand with the volunteer fire departments. And to me, this should not be a political decision. Go back to reality and common sense. This is about the safety and the well-being of the people in Person County, and that's why we're here. I hate to see politics get involved in something like this. This is not about fireworks on the 4th of July. This is 24/7, 365, and we need to look at this honestly, straightforward, and take out the politics. And I would hope in something like this that, regardless of how this thing goes, that anyone would look back and say that you did this, you did that with the fire tax, and make a political issue out of it, and come back in another year or two and make something out of it like that. So
I agree with you on the
yes, sir.
on the reality of the situation and putting the common sense. And it's been no secret that I've not been a proponent of raising taxes, and I look at it as the standpoint from the many people that I come across who are either on fixed incomes or simply can't afford it because they have mortgage payments, they have car payments, they have to pay their insurances, they have kids to feed, they have to pay for child care. And I feel the citizens of this county have, for the last 12 years, we have toed the line, and that's been bipartisan. It's not been a Republican or Democrat thing. It's been times in which Jimmy and Ray, when they were in control of the board, it's been times when Tracy and Gordon have been in control of the board. So it's not a party thing. It's a matter of doing the right, what you think is doing the right thing. But in the proposed budget, which I support the proposed budget right now, just looking at how we can toe the line, and just you're not going to make everyone happy. That's just the way it is, and it's always going to be that way. But I'm looking at the residents out there that simply can't afford to have pay extra because they're trying to live the American dream. They're trying to own property. They're trying to make their car payments, and it's going to affect them. And that's what I look at. And when just myself being a new father, I had no idea how much child care cost. It's a lot, and you have to look at, and I only have one. I can't imagine having 2 or 3, and just and people who are just really struggling to make ends meet. And I hope people can understand where I come from when I take that stance, because you know, do I lose sleep at night thinking about those type of things? How people are struggling? Absolutely, I do. So I want everyone to know that is really what weighs into my decision on that too. And I see this way is we're getting the funding, we're getting the $1 million mark for the fire departments, the funding that they need, and not passing on a burden to the struggling families of Person County.
And I understand what you're saying, and I totally respect that. I respected you all along as a member of this board for your conservative outlook, and still do. But it's a very, very difficult decision. It's not easy at all. I think we've reached a point in county government and finances that we need to sort of, if you use the term, itemize what we're doing with that budget beyond just, say, a 70-cent tax rate, and list it on the tax bill so that people know where their money is going. And this is a good example of that. And I don't say jump in the fire because everybody else does. I think most of the counties in the state have gone with some type fire tax district as a county, or individual fire tax districts. And to me, it makes sense to go that route and identify it on the tax bill as for what it is. So you know it's not hodgepodge, just thrown in the simple one-line item. I kind of like going that way too. So whatever it winds up being, I'd like to think that we'll actually identify it on the tax bill that way, so that Mr. Jones will be able to do that. I think that's a good move. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No problem. I just look at the point that we as a board have set the priority of public safety and economic development. I think we've made some strides in economic development even at the last meeting. We got some stuff in here this time also for the sheriff. We're doing some things for the EMS. We're finishing up that shift. We're getting new ambulances. This fire department was kind of that last piece. We've improved our communications. But in the same time, for the past few years, we've heard that, you know, a tax increase is going to come. A tax increase is going to come. We've held out 12 years. And I think at least by getting this $1 million out of the general fund in form of a fire tax, that will at least soften that blow or give us some cushion to maybe push out a little further before that property tax increase comes. And so that was just my set of looking at it. And if we've got no increases, then this obviously puts a little over $1 million back into our fund balance. If we look at our property tax rate, that's what, 2 cents, a little over 2 cents, that we won't be looking at possibly adding on to the property tax next year. And so, because we know it's going to come. We all know that, and regardless of how we feel about it, we know we just can't do business like we did in 1999. And so.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Kyle. My thoughts on it, I'll throw this out here. If we're going to toe the line, calling it a fire tax for the simple explanation of calling it a fire tax is going to take fund money out of our budget. And if we truly want to hold the line on taxes, we need to leave the tax rate at 70 cents per hundred and not miss out not only on the city tax that we would lose, but also future growth. So if we drop from 70 down to 68, whatever it is, then any future growth that we get, we lose that rate also. So it's not just a decision that we make today, it's a decision that will continue to move forward as the county grows. We've already got some economic development stuff on the table. Hopefully that'll be doing well. We've heard recently of some real estate issues that may come to the forefront that could help us out. And each time one of those strides happens, we go backwards a little bit because we've moved it from 70 down to 0.6814, whatever the number is. And so I'm all for holding taxes. I agree with what Kyle said about there are people within the county. I think about even the people that aren't struggling. We've got farmers. It's a big business here in Person County, and you throw a penny on the farmers, and it's it's gonna impact them more because they typically own more of the land in Person County. We always put the homeowner and say 1 penny's only gonna cost you another $20 on your tax bill for a house of $150,000, but when you throw a penny on a farmer that owns thousands of acres, then he's gonna see that impact a lot more, not just the individual homeowner that has a home that's valued at $150,000 or $200,000. So that is my concern. I do, as everyone else has said, think that we need to support the fire departments. We need to move forward, but if we're gonna toe the line, I say we toe the line at 70 cents and just find the additional money that we need, because if I did my calculations correct, by changing it, we're gonna lose $669,000 in the current budget, correct?
I'm not following. By changing the fire tax rate?
By changing our 70 cents down to 0.68.
812,000.
That's 812,000 next year. Sorry.
And then, the 1 penny is 369,000.
On the fire tax, yes.
So if we were to hold it at 70 cents per hundred and do a 1 cent fire tax on top of that, we come up to about 1.2 million, thereabouts.
We would need some time to actually calculate that to get it right.
Guesstimate.
It's a safe guesstimate, but I can't hang my hat on it yet.
So just holding the line at 70 and adding a penny somewhere in the neighborhood, I'm gonna say from 1.1 to 1.4. How's that? Gives us a broad range.
I think it's gonna be more like 1.1. It'll be closer to 1.1.
And you're actually, you know.
That's if you brought the tax rate, the district tax, and fully funded that, and brought your property tax rate back up to 70 cents. It's gonna
But
be
the
more like-
easiest thing for us to do is just use the number y'all gave us, the 0272, right?
Yes.
10272.
Yes. On
And that
on
gets
the
us
slide
to
that she had.
fully funded for the fire departments where we want to fund out of the fire tax.
That would generate additional revenues of about 1,040,000, 1 million, close to 1,050,000.
Yeah, but the calculations you did at the 0.02, wasn't that taking into account the dropping it down to 0.681?
That rate was that rate was,
That was 1.72, I think.
Right.
1.82.
yeah.
1.82.
That's what I've got.
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Chairman, I'll offer a motion to set the fire tax rate at the 0.0272, leave the tax rate at 70 cents, and to bring back a budget document reflecting that for our final approval.
Okay, we got a motion on the table. Is there any discussion? I would like to put in a substitute motion that we put this off to the next meeting. I, like Gordon, have struggled on this, and I feel like I'm on the cusp of making a decision.
I'll just withdraw my motion then.
Okay, thank you. And by the end of this meeting, I may have changed my mind, but right now, I'm still sitting on the fence on which way I wanna go.
I was trying to get us out here. Y'all said y'all didn't have no increases to add to the budget, so I thought we were ready.
And more, and I'll give you I'll say it out here in public. My biggest thought right now is leaving it at 70 and increasing it and calling our fire tax at 1 penny versus the 2 cent. And I think that eases us into the citizens increasing their amount that they've got to pay a little bit more. It also gives us the opportunity to see between now and next year how much growth we have and see if we can make up that 2% that we're going to be given. We're a Tier 1 county right now, and we see some economic options on the table that could help us increase our amount without increasing the taxes that much. And so that's the fence that I'm sitting on right now is move it up a little bit and see what kind of economic growth we get over this next year. And I won't be working on the budget next year, so I'll kind of be kicking the can down the road a little bit. But it gives us an opportunity to ease it into the citizens' tax rate and meet the demands that we need, along with seeing what kind of growth we have moving forward. So,
And with that, then, that gets us to the 1.1 you were talking about.
thereabouts.
If you're talking about increasing to fully fund the fire tax district for the $1 million, if you're talking about that and also increasing the property tax back up to 70 cents, then I'm estimating that will generate additional revenue of $1,045,000.
But I thought that's what this number does. The 0.272 you got in the book.
Yes.
So it gets us there.
Right, but I thought I actually heard you say only go up a penny.
Go up a penny. So leave it at 70, go up a penny and call it a fire tax.
Which generates 369,000. 1 penny on the fire tax.
So we're
It's
still
less
looking
than
for
what I've proposed.
So we're still looking for 700,000 then out of the general fund.
But you went up.
You went up a penny
and
on the
that gave
tax
you
rate.
12.
Oh,
So
I
you're
thought you was
gonna
talking
have a
about the,
surplus,
I thought you was
but
talking
it
about
won't
fire
go back
tax. So
in.
he said a penny on the property tax.
So you have two separate items. You'll have your 70 cents property tax and then a penny fire tax,
You're saying flat penny.
a flat penny.
That's $369,000.
But it's still a mix. You won't get $1 million all out of fire tax.
No,
Is
you
that what I'm
won't.
understanding?
You're
No, you won't.
increasing the general fund appropriation. to
Right,
make
by
it-
leaving it at 70 cents. I
So
understand.
let's say you get the 660 out of the general fund, a penny would make up the
Yeah.
339,000 would make it up to $1
No,
million.
I understand.
Yeah.
I thought we were just trying to get the million. My intent was to get the million totally from the fire tax.
Gotcha.
You know, that way it was kind of cleaner. We knew where the money was coming from for that million, and they knew where it was coming from. This still, though, we're not looking for money because we're leaving it at 70 cents, but we're still funding it out of the general fund.
Correct. And the other thing is too, the 660 would be paid up front, and the fire tax, as we received it into the tax office, would be given to the fire departments as it comes in. And along with that, the 1 penny, if we get economic growth, also increases the amount that they get, because it's a set-aside fire tax. We've seen over the last 2 years that our growth has been small. I think our biggest growth last year was residential, and it was 2 or 3% maybe. It might have been 5. It wasn't very big at all.
We're
And so,
pretty flat. the
so
last couple of
looking at what
years.
we've done over the past few years, if we get any growth at all, it's gonna help out in both areas. It's gonna help out on the property tax, and it's gonna help out on the fire tax itself. So, that's the reason I'm sitting here on the fence thinking that that's the route I would rather go if I were gonna do it, so.
Russell.
Russ?
Can I throw a fifth option just to make things more confusing? I think it's
No,
five options.
No.
Tracy confused us enough.
So the Commissioner Powell indicated he wanted the fire tax to show on the tax bill as a full fire tax, which tells me and the board, I believe, that if we're gonna do that, we have to have a full fire tax of 2.72. If we did a full fire tax of 2.72, and we changed the tax rate for the county from 70, as Commissioner Kendricks had said, to 69, that would make a combined rate of 7,172. So instead of a penny increase, it's almost 2 pennies. But that would fund the fire departments at 1 million, and it would increase the general fund revenues of 695,000. So that's gonna give you 330 back from what you contributed to fire departments. It's gonna add a 0.82 penny on the tax rate, on the general fund revenues, giving you extra 365, giving you 695 total extra for the general fund. That kinda gives you, from what I'm hearing, you want the fire tax to be there and fire tax to be all supportive. If you did a fire tax at 0.182, and you eventually want the fire tax to cover everything, and you never change that 182 rate, you have to have 30% growth in the tax base to ever get to 1 million.
Make it up.
And that's not gonna happen as long as I'm living, I don't believe. A 30% increase in the tax basis is astronomical. That would be a bigger increase than Commissioner Kendrick mentioned, a smaller increase than Commissioner Jeffers mentioned.
And that balance give and take.
It's a happy median.
Is,
You ready?
That is an increase of 1.72
but say that again, you're gonna.
So I'm gonna lower the, I'm not gonna do anything, I'm proposing that you consider a 69-cent general fund
Okay.
and a 272 full fire tax,
Mhm.
giving you a combined rate of 7172, a
Mhm.
1.72 cent increase. It will give the general fund extra $695,000 from the county manager's proposed budget of 6,818, and gets a full fire tax of $1 million.
And that's the way it shows up on your bill.
And if it, with your instruction, the tax rate, fire tax will show as a separate rate anyway. It will
Right.
show 272, and everything that you pay on your tax bill will show this amount of money went to fire tax for every bill you pay.
Okay, so 69 on property tax and,
.027,
Well,
whatever.
272. And I would-
272.
I prefer that to be 3, but
I-
it's
He likes
easier.
even numbers.
Easy math. When you sit down with a taxpayer and you try to, explain to them why the bill adds up to be this, it's easier to have smaller numbers, less decimal points.
well,
Math can, we can do
and
anything.
see, that's what I'm thinking all along. And what we need to do, and I hope the fire departments will be in agreement with this. I see no real reason in all of my research that the ISO rating can't be lowered. And I think the people of the county fully expect that. When this is done, they need to see some return on their expense. Now, the timelines on that, I don't know anything much about. But when that's done, I think it's going to have a fairly good offset there when their insurance rate is lowered versus what we're talking about an increase here. So I see something good happening there for the taxpayers with their insurance. So, but that's the scenario, and Russell and I talked about that one some too. That's kind of in line with what I've been thinking.
So with the current proposal, we lose 812. With my proposal, we were gonna gain 1 point something.
$1,040,000.
And with Russell's, we won't lose anything, but we're only gonna gain like 695.
That's offset by the 812 you lost, so you're losing less.
That sounds like a compromise, gentlemen. Let's go. let's make that motion now.
My only concern with that is you're losing that penny again, and you're losing that revenue that we would be getting off of that penny.
You're still losing.
You're still losing on today's tax, and you're also losing on future growth.
You could always change the tax rate in the future also. So you're not set today to always be 69 or 70 or whatever you decide today. Next year, you can make it 70 cents again if you want to get the extra growth. You can change it anytime.
So back to
But
my
you're still gonna be losing
So
the
back to
city.
my-
Still lose the
because-
city.
Never losing the city.
Yeah, you do. You lose the-
77,000.
Go with the raise.
Back to my proposal then.
Yeah.
Let's go. We're gonna put it in
I just
fund
confused
balance.
things, sorry.
Save it.
Mhm.
I ain't coming here with a whole list of how to spend it. Save it. We got other things coming up. We know we got other things
We
coming up.
got some big things coming up.
And so,
That's one of my reasonings for trying to get this done, because that's the elephant in the room, and it will impact what we're doing otherwise. So if we could get this decided, then we know from there what we can do with some other entities. So what do we got on the table now? Mr.
We
Chairman?
got,
What
we've got Ray's proposal, we got my proposal, and we got Kyle's proposal at this moment
And
that's out
Russell's.
there, and Russell's.
No, I don't know.
Well, I mean, and that was one of the options.
Well, the one that Russell talked about is one that he and I talked about, and
So we'll call that Gordon's.
Can you get a printout of, just send us a printout explaining of kind of full detail of some numbers that we can
We can
Visit.
give you a slide right
Yeah.
quick.
do a slide and
Yes.
like I said, and you can, I mean, if it's, if we, like Tracy said, if we wanted to wait until the second work session, you can shoot out to us and give us a chance to mull over that before.
this is only one issue though. I mean, if we had 5 or 6 things on the agenda, I can see having another work session.
Mhm.
But all we're talking about is setting these rates.
What would you want to print out that slide so I can, maybe I
Just-
can.
Just
use some
everything that
numbers.
you mentioned.
So basically is, you change it to 7172, you're doing a 1.72 cent increase.
Say that one more time.
So a combined rate of the 69 and the 272 gives you a 7172 combined rate. So you're raising taxes 1.72 cents overall, and that's only for the county, not for the city, because of course the
You're
city's not
losing-
paying the 272.
Yeah.
So if you do this, the extra 1.72 pennies on a $100,000 house, you'll be increasing the county citizens' tax by $17.20 annually if they had a $100,000 house. And you can do that to 200,000, make it easy. I'd rather go 100,000. It's easy to do in my head. You bring that up to 17.2 times 2. So instead of $17, you're looking at a $25. $35 increase if you have a $200,000 house. If you went that combined rate of 71.72
Per year.
per year, so you're talking at $35, talking $3 a month. And Mr. Powell did bring up a good point that somewhere down the road your homeowner's insurance very likely could make up for that difference. Because you have better fire coverage, your insurance for your house drops. It won't happen right away, but it would eventually help on the homeowners.
No, I know it's not gonna be immediate.
So what was the
3
loss
years.
to the
3
general
years,
fund then?
3 years, yeah.
That's around
So the loss of the general fund, you were looking at a loss of $812 before, and you're returning $695 back to that, so the difference of those two, you still got a
Okay,
loss
from
for
812,
general fund,
yeah.
because you dropped the general fund tax rate.
Right.
You have a
That's
loss
what I
compared to
misunderstood
the
on your
0.7,
first.
I see it.
Compared to what's in the budget, you don't have to increase.
Correct.
So you have a surplus
Of
to
$695.
save or spend of
So 117,000.
around 600.
From the proposed budget, you have an increase of $695.
Yeah, but I'm trying to get to the loss of the general fund. So before we lost 812, now you're saying we're gonna lose 695.
Lose $695 less. You add $695
Right,
back to
so
it.
812 minus 695 is 117.
That's a whole lot of moving parts there, because you're talking about
Yeah.
increasing the
I understand,
fire
but it's-
department funding and trying to figure out.
It's a lot less than 812,000.
Yes, sir.
I can live with
Now,
that.
now, be sure I understand this. Now, okay, you set the tax rate at 69, and then you put the fire tax on
0.02.
for everybody that's in the fire district, right?
Correct.
But you don't put the fire tax on for
City.
city.
Correct.
So, they get a reduction of what?
1 cent.
a 1 penny
They get a
tax
penny
reduction.
reduction.
Well, it went from 70-cent county rate to a 69-cent county rate. So all your city citizens had a decrease of 1 cent.
But if you set this property tax rate at 70 cents, like
Mhm.
Mr. Kendrick was talking about, Chairman Kendrick, you keep that, what they're paying the same, and then you add the fire tax to the fire districts that are actually getting the service.
Correct.
Then you
Am I
had-
right?
Yes, sir. And then you had a 2.72-cent tax increase when you combine
What?
the county rate.
That still sounds,
His proposal was only 1 penny.
On
1
fire
penny.
tax.
I know what he's saying.
Fire tax.
Yeah, I hear that. That's where they are. I think keeping the tax rate the same, that part, I'm with you on that, because I think, I done played this game of reducing it and increasing it, and it didn't work several years ago, so I'm not a big proponent of reducing it, because when you come back to increase it, it won't be a penny. It'll be more than that. I can promise you that you playing catch up then. So, we done been there. We went from 67 to 65 and went to 70 where we at now just to catch back up. I mean, it won't easy either. Now, you think this is not easy, but you need to try that one time.
Well, that's why I said
It's not
earlier, I
easy
like
at all,
to
but
take
if you leave it-
politics out of all this, and I remember when that went through.
Right.
And
It was a
offered
mistake
the
when we did it.
suggestion, it was a
Yes.
bad idea.
Yes, sir. I was on the board when we did it, and it was a mistake when we did it, but anyway, we got it straightened out, and wasn't an easy thing to do, but, so, the best thing to do is keep your tax rate the same, fund your fire department,
Okay,
and
tell
be
me.
done with it.
Tell me this, 1 penny on the fire tax generated what?
369, 164.
And we were currently funded in a general fund at like 660,
What was it?
669.
369, 164.
Any way you look at it, every penny is on fire tax brings in $77,000 less
Right.
than the county rate does.
Okay, so
You lose
if we do
that.
Tracy's proposal and set it at 1 penny and leave the tax rate, by leaving the tax rate alone, we're gonna keep that $812,000 in the general fund.
Right.
By setting it at 1 penny It only generates us 369, 164, so that leaves us fine at 630, 836. You subtract that from the 812, we're still in the positive of 181, 164. You make that as a motion, I'll vote for it today.
What about the 330 that we're already paying, Amy? Does that get restored?
So, what
I
are you
didn't back that
setting
out.
you're setting the property tax rate at 70 cents?
70 cents and a
you're
1
setting-
penny tax.
And what is
fire
that?
tax.
It's gonna be a 1 penny fire tax.
One penny fire.
164, 1 penny.
So right now, we have it set at
182.
so you're reducing.
Reducing that down to
that,
369.
causing our contribution to be more.
Right.
But we're raising the general fund up almost 2 cents.
I'd have to do some calculations to know for sure, but yes, that would generate a surplus, but,
We wouldn't be losing to the general fund like we are with the current proposed budget. That's the main thing I'm after this year. I mean, it doesn't get us all of it out of the fire tax, but we got a fire tax established, and we're not losing in the general fund. And so, with no increases to the budget, nobody's in here adding something, I could support that today.
I'll make a motion that we leave the tax rate at 70 cents on the 100 and create a 1 cent fire tax. And that's in the form of a motion. Is there any further discussion?
You wanna talk about fireworks?
Just for this one item. This is
Okay.
one line item,
I got you.
not the rest of them. Any further discussion?
This isn't for the budget, this is.
Right, this is
This
just
is just
setting the
us
rates.
agreeing on
Just
that
setting the
rate
rates.
for the fire tax and leaving the
So the
property tax.
So
at 70.
property tax remains the same, 70 cents. You have 1 penny
Designated.
designated to, so that's not gonna get you up to the $1 million.
No.
Correct.
So what does that 1 penny get you up to? You had it on the slide there.
369, 164.
Say that one more time.
369, 164.
369,
164.
164.
Right.
All right. So 369, 164. That's the penny for the fire tax.
Yes.
All right. So you've got roughly $630,000
$630, $836 we're looking for.
that you're looking for.
But you
Yes.
got it because you keep the 70 cents the same. Property tax is staying the same.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so that's what we're gonna do with that. Next on the agenda is fireworks.
We just had them.
It's up to.
Didn't cost us, but how
All
much?
right. So
It's
So-
up to you all. If
so
you wanted to.
you heard we got a request from City Council. I think we got something right here that they're
4,000.
4,750. And you know, we debate last year, year before last, we had some visitors parade around with flags, and you know, with that same sentiment, I think we could look at trying to help out the city, because it truly does benefit the entire county. It's probably the biggest event, and my wife may get mad because I may say it's bigger than personality, but it's huge. I mean, you have to get up there a couple hours early to get a parking space.
Now, we're looking at one request only of us, just the one,
Just the fireworks.
fireworks or the chamber
Just the
request?
fireworks.
Just the
City-
fireworks from the
of
city. We're not.
Now, I make a motion that we contribute to that.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion?
4,750, right?
Yep.
And where would you like that money to come from?
We just create a surplus.
Use that?
So,
Okay.
Yeah, because what you'll do,
we have a tentative estimate on the surplus.
Can you pop it up there? Is it? No.
Yeah, I mean, I can.
It's gonna be a little more
It's
when we get
tentative,
this.
so don't
Right.
get caught up on it.
just tell us.
Kelly, can you,
Just tell us.
Just tell us.
Just tell us.
411,000.
There you go.
Good Lord.
It's gonna be a little bit more than that after I get final, but that's a good estimate.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to fund $4,750 for the fireworks, and coming out of the surplus that we just generated. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Next on the agenda, Roxbury Area Chamber of Commerce. We have
It's on my birthday.
the Personality Festival. The Chamber of Commerce is requesting a funding of $2,500 in support of the Personality Festival. Any discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to recuse myself from this discussion simply because my wife is an employee of the chamber.
Move for approval, 2,500.
Okay. We have a motion to recuse.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, we got to vote you out.
Yeah, vote me out first.
All in favor of recusing Commissioner Perrier, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Now we have a motion on the table to fund $2,500 in support of the Personality Festival, coming out of the $401,000 that we came up with the new fire tax general fund vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Is there any other budget items that need to be brought up? Hearing none and getting to this point, I would entertain a motion to accept the budget as proposed with the changes that we have. Can we do that?
have a surplus.
And putting that into
Discretionary.
discretionary or general?
What,
How much you got in contingency?
100,000.
And we got how much left?
It's 403.
403 is our running total, 750.
Well,
Good.
let's add it. I'm sorry.
could I ask a question?
Please.
What are we doing with, in the proposed budget, with EDC? What are we
Do you-
adding to them in any way that we could have some additional money?
I have fully funded the request that I received.
Yes, and that's what?
I need to turn to that page to get that number for you. Hang on 1 second. And I also rolled money into their Economic Catalyst Fund.
That one is a category I'm maybe thinking about a little bit.
Okay, on page 89 is the Economic Development Department budget.
The recommended request was 289,165. We funded at 246.
I'm trying to remember where my
455.
cuts were.
There was, advertising went from 30,000 down to 3,330. Dues and subscriptions went from 23,300 to 2740.
I don't know if that's the budget you're asking about, or if you wanted to look
Well,
at page
no, something that's,
140.
this is just your,
Your data thing,
what we're
your-
talking
your
about
chart
there
wrong.
is,
That's my
Oh, right,
staff
so it's- I see it.
operating
Whatever.
budget. If you're
Right.
talking about the
What's that?
Economic
Cap
Catalyst
411,
Fund,
spent
set
750.
aside that we could increase that so that when industry calls, we've really started to build some sort of incentive fund, or I
Sure.
don't know what you'd like to call it, but
so the incentives are on page 142 that the board has committed to. We also have a fund balance. Amy, what did you tell me is the Economic Catalyst Fund balance amount for next year? It's like,
I can look it up.
Well, in July of 2017, our audited fund balance was 1.88 million, which is on page 142.
On 142.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
proposal next year was to use $630,000 of fund balance for existing economic development incentives, so that would,
A
that would
1.2
reduce it
million.
slightly, but we'd still set you at over $1 million.
about a $1.2 million fund balance in the Economic Catalyst Fund.
it's not enough.
What would you like it to be?
We need to build on that. That was somewhat of a joke, but if we're gonna do anything in economic development, it takes money, and we need to start seriously looking in that direction in the future and not use that money for something else. So so that it would be a set aside, I don't know, I'm just,
Okay.
All right, seeing the running total up there, would you
Oh, I
be,
have it down here.
would you be in agreement that we could go back to EDC and tell them what we have here and see if they have any proposals for that? Because we could put this in the general fund and we could allow them to pull from it if they come up with an idea on
Put it in contingency?
contingency.
The whole 400,000?
yeah, that'll work. And we do have to make a decision soon about, filling that position and how we're gonna go about that. I think we've had some discussion about consultant, some fees, so we're gonna be sure we cover that without digging into what you talked about here. So that could possibly be part of this surplus as well.
Okay. I'll bring back a proposal at your next official board meeting to consider hiring a consultant
Right.
as a recruiter and
Mhm.
headhunter for that position if you're interested.
Okay,
Do
well,
we need a
so-
motion for the budget amendment?
So we can balance all this
Not
out
amendment,
with
but,
the
you know.
current, motion. I mean, we can
So
do
the
these things.
remaining can go to contingencies.
Is that it?
The
Yeah,
430,
right,
yes.
Yeah.
So when you do that, your balance
Mhm.
is.
And so we can come
So
back.
we have
If
$500,000
needed.
in contingency.
So your motion
Yes.
again,
So the motion would be we accept the 70 cents, 1 penny fire tax along with the fire works.
We already got that motion.
All of that stuff's all out of the way. So
All we need them to
accepting the budget as
bring-
proposed,
Prepare a budget.
putting
Ordinance, yeah.
403
The remaining
remaining amount in contingency
to balance.
in the form of a motion.
And direct the manager to prepare the budget ordinance.
And accordingly. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
wow.
We're adjourning?
I tell you, no, we've just set a precedent here for future boards. To work
I know
together
that's
and
what I'm
get
trying to
something
adjourn
done.
before somebody else
Man,
happens.
it's-
Yeah.
So no,
I am very, very happy to see the action taken here amongst us five today, to say the least. It's great. Thank all y'all, Russell and Heidi and
We ain't missed months like them
Sybil
dealing
and
with y'all.
Amy and Laura and everybody that's had a part in, because I've asked a lot of questions over the past year. And you've always made time for me, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
thanks for
Any-
your support.
Any further discussion? Thank you again. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, quick, before you adjourn, we got a budget session set for the
13th.
Sounds like you don't need it.
No.
So
Need
that's
this ordinance to
canceled?
Come back in our meeting, right?
We'll bring it back at your regular scheduled board meeting.
Do we need
Right.
to
We
take,
have not noticed the second budget work session, so.
we don't
We
have to
good.
take
That
any
was
action?
only proposed if needed.
I got you.
So
Okay.
we have not noticed that, so we
Okay.
do not have a meeting next week unless you
That's
need.
great.
June
Okay.
18th will be our next meeting.
Just trying to cover.
So our next meeting is
June 18th.
18th.
Yeah.
That's a date.
Motion on the table to adjourn. All in
So
favor,
moved.
please indicate so.
Aye.
Okay.
I got you. Thank you.
Good work.